This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, X-Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk about bass fishing. Double dose of BTL today. Kick things off with, I'm going to say, one of the most natural anglers that I've had the pleasure of interviewing and kind of getting to know and be around in a while, and that is none other than Brian New. Quite a pedigree with him. You know, we've documented over the past years of how he came up, one of the most prolific co-anglers in history, then transitioned to the front of the boat, his relationship with Brian Thrift growing up in the North Carolina area, then moving to South Carolina, now winning the first Bassmaster Elite Series event that he fished in, 44 top 10s with FLW, now MLF. And Brian went into some real interesting stuff about finding fish fast, because if you watch him fish, it's kind of like a tornado, and there's not a lot of room to breathe. It's Red Bulls and 6,000 RPMs. And he's still young. He's got a lot. Another dude who got into this thing young and has just been dominating ever since. That's Jacob Wheeler. It's been a minute since we've had Wheeler on. I think he's got a clothing brand, a tackle brand, and a boat company now since the last time we've had him on BTL. If I'm correct. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff out there. He's got another BPT trophy, the 6th on his mantle. Jacob, thanks for jumping on BTL this afternoon. I know you got to be busy.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. Obviously, I make time to be able to talk with BTL listeners, and obviously, man, it's always fun to catch up.
All right, we're going to get into this win on Guntersville, because every once in a while you have something unique that goes down. I'd already booked you for this deal, and then I got a call from a BPT angler who has caught a few fish on Guntersville and has lifted a few trophies in his day. And he was a little, I don't know what word I've used. I don't want to say shocked, but he was a little, he basically said that you just kicked everyone's ass off the exact same stuff and that you were just better than everyone. That's basically word for word what he said.
Dang. Yeah, I don't even know what to say on that. I was not. It was definitely not about necessarily the spots. It was definitely, figuring out a technique that you get to generate a bite. Pressure is everything in the sport right now, and figuring out something just a little bit different that the fish haven't seen that much is really important.
It is. That is one heck of a backdrop, by the way. Probably one of the top 5 backdrops that we've had. Is the new one up there yet?
It is, actually. So this is actually, my wife sort of just did this for me. We just moved into our new house, and so we have a good combination of the trophy wall. I actually just sort of set up this got a ping pong table, got some jerseys in the background, the jersey wall. So we're just still getting it together. We just got into our new place, and so yeah, it's definitely it's a trophy room, so it's sort of hangout.
Yeah, you already screwed up. There's no room for more big trophies. It's already filled up, man. What are you gonna do? You gonna add another wall?
So actually, we were talking. So they actually messed up the trophy case, and they're supposed to be able to utilize there's supposed to be 2 rows,
right?
So now we're sort of. Well, you never know. We'll see. We'll work on it. Right now, it's fine.
I mean, that's going to be a problem within 6 months.
Well, we have right now, it's staggered on this one right here is in front of that's the newest trophy right there. The Guntersville trophy. Angler of the year's behind that. Another one's behind that. So you have 3 in one little bed. It's whatever. Listen, the trophies really don't matter that much at the end of the day. You just they're great to hoist. They're awesome to have, but it's it's the moments that last more than anything. You go back in here, 5 years down the road. I remember the last time, maybe 2 years ago, I touched the Forcewood Cup trophy for the first time for 7 years, and just the memories that brought back was super impactful. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I take a trophy. I don't look at it as like, it's an accomplishment. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff to be proud about, but there's something that each trophy has is those memories that are attached with it. And that's sort of the most important thing.
Yeah. Who was it who kept their Forest Wood Cup trophy in the closet? One of those guys was it Hawk? It might have been Hawk for a while or something. We did something where he was showing the closet and he's like, there's the Forest Wood Cup trophy. And it was like just hanging out in the closet.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. I do remember that.
Do you have the 2011 All-American trophy up there?
I do. It's top. It's right there.
Wait a second. You won the All-American and they gave you the standard BFL trophy and just put All-American on it?
Yeah.
Go grab that thing.
It's a little bit larger. Look. It's a little bit larger. So I have a BFL win. Hold on, I'll show you. So here's a BFL win. Okay, and here's the All-American trophy.
Okay, it's slightly larger.
So it's still it's similar, but it's
Hey, if you flip those over, does it say MTM recognition on the bottom of it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's Big Dave Smith out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, MTM recognition. Dude's done all the trophies for as long as I can remember. Yeah. So at one point, all of those trophies you have been in Oklahoma City, Norman area.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Congratulations on your 6th win. That had to feel good after just a brutal 75th at Lake Murray, just bottom of the barrel, Jacob Wheeler. I mean, man, we thought your days of winning were over after that 75th place tank.
I'm going to be honest with you. I actually, that did mess with me. It did.
Did it really?
Mentally, I was pissed off. I was very irritated. I just missed it. And it doesn't happen very often, but it happens. And everybody's gonna have bad tournaments, but like that one irritated me a lot. And as much as like I feel like I'm now becoming a seasoned veteran, I've never fished a herring spawn on a lake before in my life, and so I never knew anything about it.
Really?
No, I never have. So that was something that was very new to me. And then I was also trying to learn. Do I want to commit to this? Do I want to be do something a little bit different? And I felt like the fish were leaving the bank, but then there was new ones coming and I didn't realize. So like I made some really bad decisions in that tournament. And so that one bothered me, but you learn more from those tournaments than any other tournament. Like the ones that you're like, you have bad tournaments, you're just like, dang, what did I do wrong? And you analyze it a little bit more, where if you have a good tournament, you win or you get top 5, you're like, well, yep, it went as good as it could have, so you don't really learn that much there. Well, so like I feel like, all my tournaments, I feel like I look back, typically when I have a bad one, I typically have a really good one right after that, just because it's like my mind is a little bit different. And it also sort of knocked me out of the Angler of the Year race. So that also let me like sort of like my mind like refocus and like, okay, how do I win tournaments this year? Like how refocus this energy of like consistency and then move to like, all right, what do I need to do to win Guntersville?
Boy, if you're supposed to learn more from bad tournaments, I am learning one heck of a lot. I've learned it every time I go out.
You're going to learn every time you go out, but you know what I'm saying? Like you do.
What'd you learn at Murray? What'd you learn that you thought you knew that afterwards you look back? I'd feel free to go into as much detail as you want on that, because I know you'll keep some of that stuff under your hats because you'll probably top 5 it the next time.
No, it was just, the thing is about like a fisherman, and we always try to like look at a weather trend. Okay, like we try to look at this weather pattern. Like it's a warmer year. It's bass have been spawning since February. Oh, they're going to be doing this. They're going to be out there on the herring spawn early. They're going to be out offshore early. And it's crazy because even though it was an earlier year, it became a trickle spawn. Like when the elites went there, they were still catching them on bed. Like it became a deal where it started in February spawning there, and it went still to where they were spawning when they, even if it wasn't an early season. And so it came to a point where I'm like, I thought it was going to be one thing. I thought I try to pride myself on being versatile and trying to adjust to like conditions that like, and be able to like, okay, I had the herring spawn deal, a few of those places. And then I had, the like spawning fish happening as well. And so like, sometimes when you try to do too much, number one, I got in the wrong area of the lake. Like I felt like I focused on a different area of the lake. And for whatever reason, like the herring spawn was not happening everywhere. It was more creek related earlier on, which is typical because like a shad spawn happens in the creeks first, then it starts to happen on the main lake. So like it starts the backs of the creeks because all it does is follow the bass spawn. It's bass spawn the backs of the creek first. Then they spawn in pockets in the creeks. Then all of a sudden they spawn the main lake. It's the exact same sort of scenario that happens on the herring spawn. And so like, I just didn't take that knowledge that I knew on that. And so what's happening is the stripers were on places earlier on the main lake. And so you're catching all these striper. And it wasn't like, but then you catch a 5-pound largemouth, but there just wasn't that many of them there. So then you got enough bites to get you like intrigued, but like, it was a tough tournament because like you could catch them any way you wanted to. And I just didn't like focus on one thing. And like, if I would have just focused all in on one deal, I felt like I'd have been in a lot better position.
But then you went to Guntersville saying, I'm going to win this one.
No, I mean, the TBA has been really good to me, like I obviously, yes, I called up Newell and I talked to Newell and I'm like, when I get like after a bad tournament, I'm like, I'm going to win the next 5, you just mentally, you're like, you have to refocus. I'm going to, but like for real, like I was like, my goal is to win my number one goal this season is to win one tournament. And then if you win one tournament, your goal is to win 2, that's just always, you refocus that energy. It's like, you don't accomplish you accomplish your goal and then you reset another goal just to like, cause that's just always how it is. Like, when I had a tough tournament, when I ended up winning of the year against Odd and I were battling back and forth, it was crazy. He won 2 that year. I ended up winning 3. That year I had a bad tournament on Harris Chain. I went back and I got second to Kevin on Chickamauga. I won at the St. Lawrence River, and then I won again at Champlain. And so it was like, but the same thing happened. I focused, man, I'm out of the Angler of the Year. I'm 35 points back, 40 points back. I need to win to even have a chance to make it an Angler of the Year. So my mindset was, hey, let's focus on winning. And it just happened it happened that way. So it's like, it's weird. I don't know how to really, it's sort of interesting, like in that scenario of like how that all played out.
But you did say it sounds like you made some decisions to go for the win instead of stay in the Angler of the Year race, stay in the Angler of the Year race, which means, does that mean you're more likely to take risks?
Yeah, so in the Angler of the Year, you like in that scenario at Guntersville, I spent most of my time out offshore practicing offshore because that's what I love to do, and I also felt like it was going to be one that way. And if I was directly in the Angler of the Year race, I would always have to have a backup. So I'm going to spend at least 4 of my hours of my practice time on the bank looking for bluegill spawn, looking for just another thing that like, hey, look, if the world comes to an end and there's not a bass out here offshore and I cannot get on a spot, I'm going to be able to go catch 15 pounds to keep me at par for the day. And so in that scenario, I was able to refocus and utilize that same amount of time that I might have focused on, that would have drawn my attention off of what I really needed to do to win, to completely focus on winning the event.
That's good stuff. I'm a numbers guy. I think the last time you were on, I had calculated the numbers because you were using a little bit heavier pound test on Thousand Islands and you were getting the smallmouth in like 30 to 40 seconds quicker. It might not have even been that much than all the other competitors, but then you extrapolate that out times 40 or 50 fish a day, and you're actually fishing for an additional half hour a day. Extrapolate that out times 4 days, because that was when they had the cut. You're actually getting 2 more hours of fishing time. You're averaging a fish every 11 minutes. You're actually, because of how much shorter you're fighting the fish, you're able to catch 5 additional fish, averaging 4 pounds. You're basically getting 20 pounds on the field. Remember that whole scenario?
Yes, I do remember that whole scenario.
Well, your article on MLF kind of reminded me of the same thing. using the strategy where you have the 2 combined days with the 5 fish limit, the weight 0. There's no like win and you go straight to the championship round anymore. So that incentive is out. And then the final 2 days are combined. And you said in here that you were only fishing for a period and a quarter, which means you basically had a half day, which would be like extrapolate that out times the 2 for the first 2 rounds. You're basically getting an additional practice day looking for schools of offshore fish while everyone else is battling it out and trying to stay on their fish and try to stay on it. And then it seemed like that, as the fishery was changing, was massive for you. I mean, you take the best in the world and you give him an extra practice day, which you manufactured in the tournament by practicing. But that sounds like it was a big key for you.
That was huge. I mean, that was once I realized they were like, it was tough because I live on Chickamauga. You know, I live here on the lake and I love fishing the TVA. And so you're always trying to get an idea of exactly what's transpiring. And so like what's happening here a lot of times is sort of what's transpiring on a lot of other lakes on the TVA. At least they're within days of each other a lot of times, unless something else is going down. Only thing about Guntersville is there's a lot of grass. So that sort of throws a little bit more of a wrench in the plan. I didn't really know how that would affect the fish if they got hung up in the grass, you know, if they would, you know, they would wait to go offshore. So anyway, but last week I could definitely tell they were starting to move out and on Chicago. And there wasn't that many places though. I mean, there was like 6 to 8 places, maybe 10 places on the whole lake. There was actually a school of bass. And the majority of those were community places. And so I was to the point where I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then towards the end of last week or, 2 weeks ago, there was a place that I graphed earlier in the week and they weren't there and they just showed up. Like there was like 4 bass there. And the next day there was 10 bass there. And so I'm like, okay, they're coming. Of course they're coming. You look at the weather and it warmed up and everything else. And so that all of that prep time here helped me to sort of understand, okay, that's happening there as well, more than likely. So when I would see a place that I would see 2 bass on, and I knew it was set up like a Tennessee River place, I'd mark it and say, put an icon on it, check this, second day of the tournament. And I would go back to those places that have 1 or 2 bass, and there'd be 8 bass, there'd be 12 bass, there'd be 15 bass. And that was just the knowledge from understanding the TVA and how fast it transpires into getting to that point, in understanding that. Now, of course, it did help. Like I knew also because they were coming out so fast, there was actually 2 places that I found in the tournament that I graphed and practiced and did not see a single bass, not one. But I'm like, dude, I know they got to get there. I just know it. And I graphed them in the tournament and they showed up in the tournament. Now there was only like 7 or 8 bass there. But I was able to have that in my back pocket. If I needed one, I knew there was not going to be anybody else there. And there shouldn't be locals there at that point in time because they just got there.
So that's the fishing to where they're going.
Exactly.
Not to where they are.
You are literally fishing to where they're heading.
I remember the first time I heard about that, it was like I think it was the 2013 Classic. It might not have been 13. It might have been the same. It was one of those on Grand. And David Walker was talking about how he didn't catch hardly anything during practice, but he wasn't fishing where the fish were. And that he was banking on, he had tried to figure out where those fish were going to be on Grand in 5 days because the Classic is a whole week ahead. So he was very optimistic that he had located where they were, didn't care about where they were right now because he knew by the time the tournament started that they're not going to be there. They're going to be somewhere else. So he spent his time trying to figure out, guesstimating using his experience where they were going to be, fishing those areas, understanding those areas, knowing that there weren't any there right now. It's kind of the same thing you did. It's the exact same thing you did.
Yeah, and it's sort of weather trend. He probably was on the second point, and they were like warming up. So he's like, all right, in the back of this creek, there's a little hard spot right here. They probably could set up right here for the shads sort of move up. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. It's just the reverse. It's like they're heading out or they're heading in. Yeah, you do. It is. It's tough to do. It's tough to do, especially when you're trying to still qualify and get right. Make it into the knockout rounds to fish the actual event.
You mentioned something. New mentioned it this morning. I've had it pounded into my head with the open that I had on Wheeler It's a Tennessee River thing. You mentioned hard spot. It's very easy to say what a hard spot is, but just describe exactly what a hard spot is, because that is like such a buzzword, but it's hard for me in my mind to picture what a hard spot is on a ledge or offshore where these fish are stopping.
Okay, so this is the thing. Like there's a lot of times people just are like, man, I got this sneaky little shell bed. This shell bed, this hard spot. Okay, look, like a lot of times when I'm talking about a hard place, it's just if you graph over, use your side scan, okay, and you side scan down a ledge, and it's really like dark, okay, and you're getting a dark signature return on your side imaging. That is soft bottom, okay. Typically, you're going to see that with creek ledges. You're going to see that but typically on the TVA, anything that is facing into the current or like anything that has a high spot that can that current pushes over it and pushes shell onto it, it's going to be hard. Front mouths of creeks, high places, points, contour changes, that's going to be a hard place those fish utilize. That's also the primary place where they're in the front where the current's pushing bait to them. So that's sort of like the now that's not every place. Let's put it that way. Every place is not driven by just current. There's a lot of places that are secondary, but that is when I'm saying a hard place, typically they're going to set up on harder places, which are shell beds or harder, returns on your side imaging.
But are they there because the bottom is harder, or are they there because of what you just described, where in most cases it's where the most food and the most nutrients and things are going to wash past them, and it just happens to be a hard spot?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Okay. I think sometimes they don't care about it, because I've actually caught them on soft bottom places too. I've caught them on places like grouped up hard on places that are not hard. They're grouped up in a group, literally 100 yards off of where there would be a hard bottom area, because that's the best place where they could ultimately feed. Okay. So there's not always, it does not always play that way. There's times that they will choose it just whatever gives them the best opportunity to feed. Is really, I got you. I think that trumps more than hard bottom.
How often do you think they feed out there? Is it constant? Because it obviously, you hear the timing thing, you hear first in the morning in the TVA, you hear an afternoon bite, you hear when they start generating. Are those fish just neutral on the bottom, like we've seen on Wired to Fish videos and stuff, where they're just sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, there's 75 fish in this thing and they're laying on top of each other, not active? Or are you seeing them salmon or trout in a river underneath, sitting there looking for stuff to come, waiting for the shad? In your mind, how does that look when you come up on a good hard spot offshore?
So I've never been able to understand it more now than with a forward-facing sonar. And forward-facing sonar is allowed for us to understand more about bass behavior. And so it was crazy. This craziest thing that happened during this whole event was it happened in the knockout round. And in the knockout round, we had two major storms that came rolling through. One was around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and the other was in the afternoon, about 2:30, 3 o'clock. And I was sitting on a community place, and I caught a few fish as the storm was coming in. And I mean, there's 100 bass sitting there, and I'd see them. They'd follow my bait. I'd catch one, and then another one would follow my bait, and they'd group up, and I'd cast over there. Maybe I'd catch one. And all of a sudden, that storm hit, big weather burst, winds blowing against the current. And I'm like, okay, raining as hard as it could. I cast out there, 2 minutes into the rain, catch a 6-pounder. Then I catch another big one. And in the same time, with Score Tracker, it's like boom, 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 boom. Big one's caught, big one's caught, big one's caught. And I'm like, wow. That was a big deal. That rain and that during that storm, they bit like no other. It was absolutely insane. Now, I'm not saying I couldn't have caught them, but in that moment, it was crazy. And then later that day, while I was practicing during the knockout round, I was running around, checking stuff, sort of figuring some stuff out. Right before that rain came in, boom, Ott Defoe drops 24 pounds like that. if you look at like Tharp catches a giant one, Out Jones Jr. trashes him and catches 20 pounds in a matter of minutes. It happened and I wasn't even fishing at that point in time. I stopped and I made 2 casts. I threw a crankbait out there, didn't catch him, and I threw that deal out there, and I caught a 2.5 and a 4.14 that didn't help during the storm. And it was like, yeah, it was so crazy that those storm bursts impacted that bite so much.
Is that a low pressure deal?
It has to be. I mean, it's something that I don't know if it's that they sense that and it's at low pressure and they factor in that, hey, look, it's pouring down rain, the wind's blowing. It's time to feed. It's
mystery. Still a mystery. No one's really been able to figure it out.
I remember a time where maybe Tom Mansour at Kentucky Lake, and maybe it was Tom. I'm pretty sure it was Tom Mansour. It was an old FLW tournament, and he talked about how he just it was. Maybe it was like a real time report. You remember like when Newell did all those real time reports?
Yeah.
So I remember a time where he said he caught him. He never could catch. He couldn't get him to fire. And then the storm came, and he caught him every cast for 45 minutes. And I was like, I remember that, and I was like, huh. And I've never personally seen that happen until the other day.
That's good stuff. I'm going to take a break. When we get back, I want to get into this bait. I want to get into this technique. I don't know what you can or can't show. I know you're able to grab it, but I know there's also some stuff you can't really talk about at it. Officially not out till ICAST. What's the best time to win an event? Month before ICAST. Win a major event on a prototype bait a month before ICAST. But that being said, like I said, I talked to some other guys in this tournament, and they said you had the goods and they didn't have the goods, and that they were watching you catch them on the goods, and that it was not only that you were on the juice and the deal, but that, God, how many cliches can I use for offshore fishing? Is not only that you were on the juice, but you had the goods for the juice. Mm-hmm. Fair breakdown?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to try to pry some stuff out of you when we come back. It is a bonus BTL at noon on a Tuesday with 6-time BPT champion Jacob Wheeler. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
You need one legendary brand, top on all, Strike King.
So I'm a big guy, a lunker, a 2 sandwich eating kind of man. And on behalf of all of those bigger, I gotta say it once and for all, it's bad enough that the fish look smaller in our hands. The last thing we should have to worry about is getting quality outdoor clothing that fits. AVCO, any fish, any water.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at shorelineboatandrv.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa. All right, welcome back. BTL on a Tuesday special show with Jacob Wheeler. I have one more hard spot TVA ledge fishing question for you. My buddy Austin Cranford, who just finished third in the Open on Wheeler. I was talking with Brian New about the different shad that were out on the ledges there. They had like look like little chartreuse tips on their tails and stuff, but they didn't look like the normal shad that we normally see. Like he has a picture of one. I don't know if you can see that. You can, yeah, there you go. Look, you can kind of see it. See the
Look at that.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of yellow on the tail.
Yeah.
What are those different than just the normal, like, is that a different type of shad that has that little yellow stuff around them? Or is that just
like a thread, like a larger thread fin to me?
Okay.
To me, those are just a little bit larger thread fin. They're like 4.5 inches long is what it seemed like.
I mean, meaty. Like when you see them, you're like, dang, like a 4-pounder would love to eat that.
Yes, correct. It's not like it's not a thread fin like wintertime. You're sitting out there in the middle of a drain, 2.5 inches long. And they're feeding up and they're spitting them up when you hook one. They're 4.5 meaty, chunky little thread fin. They're an easy snack.
They are. All right. Let's get into this. Because like I said, this thing was very lure specific, that you were able to not only catch 29.9 in the knot. Dude, you were like, it's not how it works now, but like Century Belt was like not even a thing. Like you'd have had like mid 110s. What do you think? Okay, be honest here. 4-day tournament, 5 fish. I mean, it was basically like that, but under normal circumstances, 4-day tournament, 5 fish. What do you think your max weight could have been? I mean, would you have been pushing 115?
No, because I think that I know I could have caught a lot more, obviously, but like I don't think that it would have been that high. I think it would have been 100, 102, 103, 104, somewhere in there, because like I think I had like 98 or 97 pounds. Like when you put it up there, I think it was like 97 maybe.
But you practice for 3/4 of the time, except for the final day.
And so like, I know. And so like, the thing is like, I don't know if it would have been, I don't know. I mean, 25 pounds is catching them. So like, if I would have caught some more 4-pounders, some more 5-6-pounders. Yeah. I mean, I think 105 pounds would have been a realistic number, but also because I practiced, that was why the weights were as high as they were for me in the knockout rounds. You know what I'm saying? So it's sort of like a double-edged sword. It doesn't necessarily, I would have loved to say, yeah, absolutely.
I see what you're saying. You'd have sat on other schools that you would have tried to maximize because every ounce counted, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, what can you show and tell about this bait? It's a Rapala plastic, right?
It is. So 2 years ago, I had an opportunity to develop a line of plastics, and so Rapala was like, "Hey, look, we're gonna do this." I'm like, "If we're gonna do something, it's got to be legit. I want everything in the line." Because it's so hard to like when you think of plastics, how do you be innovative? And so like my mindset is like 3 major things. Number 1 is it has to have good action. Like it can't be just a bait that looks good. It does not actually perform. Number 2, it has to be the right durability. So like I can catch a couple, nice fish on it. And I don't have to go through, ideally not one, as long as I can get the action out of it without making it super, super, super soft, then I want it to be as hard as I can get away with getting that right action where ultimately the angler gets the most out of that bait. And then 3, it has to have really good colors. And the packaging has to be good too. So there was really 4 major things. So that was my mindset when helping develop these products. And so with this bait, it was really came twofold. Like as I got moved into my house, as I was developing this bait, it's more of like a Demiki style bait in addition to like a vibrating jig trailer. And so like one thing that I learned very quickly is it's difficult to make a lure great at 2 things. Like you can make a lure that's good at 2 things, but to make it great, it's sort of tough to do. So you sort of need to focus on like one major thing. But this one, we were sort of able to do what I wanted to do for both. because a vibrating jig, I wanted to have it to where I could, it would have the right action. I wanted it. And then in addition to be able to hunt and do everything I needed to do there. But then also really the Damiki side of it. And Damiki fishing in general has transformed. And we sort of talked about that. Damiki fishing originally is just over the top of them shaking it. So it's really not even a Damiki rig. Like now us casting a bait, I wouldn't even know what you call it. Like, it's a shake. It's you're imparting an action into a minnow style bait, fluke style bait, whatever you want to call it, Damiki style bait, and you're making cast and you're imparting that action by casting it. It's originally what it was, tight lining back in the day. Like when guys used to tight line on bluff walls for smallmouth.
Just keep it with the swing and then let the momentum of the bait move it.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's evolved with forward facing sonar now because now we can target fish or a little bit differently. So jumping into like the backstory on this, as I was developing it, I threw on several jig heads in my pool and I was playing with it and I was like, hey guys, we need to tweak one thing. I'm getting some action, I'm getting some stuff I want. And so we made a tweak. And then I got it, we got it back and it was too much. And the thing is in bass fishing is like now like a subtle action is just as important as a crazy action. Like that subtle difference can make a huge difference. It can make a big deal. So I got back the revision and I throw it in the pool and I'm like, okay, we got something. Like now, that being said, so the bait is a little bit larger. It's 4+ inches long, a little bit bigger. So like thread fin aspect, like in the wintertime, the fish are tight, dialed in on really small bait, and you might be throwing a smaller soft plastic. But if they're on that little bit larger bait, that was different. So now going into this, now I'm gonna be honest with you. Actually, I think Shin was the first one to actually sort of bring this. Like he sort of had some stuff going on the TVA here on Chickamauga. He caught him. I think he caught him on a minnow style bait, and he caught him on a cover scat, right? Mm-hmm. So, like Shin was the first one to really jump this. Not everybody knew because he was super secretive about it as well. And I started playing with it then, and then I started playing with this bait. I didn't really even think.
When he's catching them, Shin loves to act like Shin loves to act like he's not just fluent in English when he
100%. Yes, he does.
You have a conversation with him any other day. It's like talking with your buddy. Totally fine. Completely fluent 100%. He catches them. No, I have no clue. Sorry, continue. That just cracked me up.
Exactly. And so I want to give credit where credit's due on that one too, for sure. Because there's a completely different deal with throwing a bait for bait, like bait balls and fishing for wintertime fish and doing this and fishing offshore schools of bass. It's very different, and it's not the same. Like it's not done a lot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So with that being said, like that was sort of like the rundown of like the before all this. And so when I started playing with this bait, and I went out on Chickamauga, like, again, I'm playing with baits because, again, we know, like, there's not any secrets anymore on the TVA. The schools are out there. Like, you run down a ledge and even if you think it's sneaky, it's not anymore. And if you make a cast on it and catch a bass on it, like, and somebody sees you, it becomes a community hole very quickly. So with that being said, all we have as anglers is figuring out baits that they'll bite a little bit better and having that as an advantage over the rest of the field. And so I went out here on Chickamauga and I played with it and I caught a few fish. I could get more bites than any other bait, but I wasn't going to start catching any big ones. And the day before I left, I went out and I went to a place that was one of the biggest community holes in the whole lake. And you could barely get a bite on that place. Like a lot of times it's so much pressure. And I catch a 6.5 pounder in my first cast. And I said, oh snap, like that, this could be a big deal. So that's sort of the intro to all this and sort of like the backstory on it. Cause I don't, give a heads up on that. So, so the bait, I got both of them here, that I threw. So the bait, it's called a freeloader. And so I really threw two different colors. This one is green shad, and this one right here is gizzard shad. One, lighter back, one darker back. This is a hybrid swim bait jig head from VMC. And so like for me, it really came down just what you were saying. Okay, I caught a bass in practice. He spit up that shad right there. Okay, and that was the thread bait. Okay, this bait has a lot more depth to it. It has a little bit more belly to it, which has a little bit more a different, unique action, which also mimics that shad about perfect for what a lot of those fish were blowing up on and eating. Now, listen, big bass on the Tennessee River love gizzard shad, love them, but when a 4.5-inch thread fin comes rolling through, that's a little meaty thread fin, the big one's still going to bite that. You know what I'm saying? And so that was another thing, is like figuring out like what's too big and what's too small to generate a big bite. Mm-hmm. And that bait it ended up being the right deal. It's just ultimately what that bait, and I'm casting it out there, I'm shaking it. And a lot of it, it didn't necessarily mean I had to throw that bait out there and I had to visually see them on active target or active target too. Like I wasn't like I needed it. It was just that they would it was crazy how well they could see this bait. Like they could see it so well, like 10 feet above their head, they'd come up and bite it. And so I think that's how they feed though. On the Tennessee River, you got to think like as a shad swims by, if a shad just swims right next to you, like they're not going to bite that thing. But if you swim it overhead, like that's how those fish feed. They feed up.
All right. So when I just saw the picture of it and looked at it, like it looked pretty close to the bubbling shaker. And it also looked a little bit like a spunk shad and that type of style, but it has some different characteristics in that it looks like a little bit more depth, a little deeper, a little.
Yeah. So it has more depth. That's one thing. In addition to that, it has some ribs here.
Yeah.
The spunk shad's more of like, okay, originally the eye shad from Jackal was the original.
Okay.
Like they did that first and then spunk shad came out, and the tail is.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now.
Definitely different there too. Spunk shad's like appendage on the tail. He's real narrow. This one has a little bit different. And in my the tail's not as long. That was a key. The difference is like point of their tail to where your hook point is important, very much important too. Like if you have a big giant long tail, like to me, there's a very good fine line of too long of a tail and too short of a tail with you don't have the right action. So that was something I had to figure out as well.
And that's the pool stuff.
Yes. And that's also has some, one thing I can't tell you because it's what made the difference of the bait. And you'll have to see it at the pool later and I'll tell you off record, but there was one thing.
Wait till I cast officially.
Yeah. Like you'll see what I'm talking about. Like there was so basically all this is a subtle scrounger is what it is. It's a subtle scrounger. So scroungers killed the game on the Tennessee River for years. And so when you think of that, but it had a wider wobble, or if you had a good one, it had a good kick in action, and it would be a little bit tighter. This is even tighter than that. They were used to that signature of that vibration. They've seen it 100 times over. Now you went even subtler, and you generate these big bites. So it's a progression. It's not new as far as that goes, but I do truly believe it's the best bait out there on the market. Not yet on the market, but
it will be.
For that scenario. I only caught one bass the whole week on anything else like that. Not even, I did weigh that fish and it was a 5-1, but every single fish that I even caught at Lake Guntersville came on that bait right there.
Are the days of crashing big stuff that wiggles and wobbles and flashes and stuff done on these offshore schools on the TVAs, Jacob? Is this where we're all heading?
No, it's not done. There's still times when you can trigger them into. There's times when you have to throw. I still have a progression of baits, but it was just so apparent to me. The reason why I threw that out the window of my knowledge about my progression of my baits that I throw typically onto the TBA was because I was just generating big bites on that. And it was like, it didn't, like if you can throw a finesse tactic, typically you throw a finesse tactic in there and you pull them and you pull the group and you catch a couple 2.5s and you end up having 15 pounds and the guy comes in and drops 22 on the scales, especially in the same places. And you're like, man, what were you doing? Man, I just threw a big crankbait in there and caught 2 7-pounders throughout the day, and that was the difference. That's how it was. So you can, but when I knew that I had a bait that was obviously and I tried other soft plastic baits doing this, and my roommates did too. Trust me, they were, and it was just apparent that for whatever reason, that signature of that action was, lo and behold, the way to generate those bites. I don't know if it was they were keying in on those thread fin. I don't know if it was just truly that match that hatch aspect. I don't know if it was just unique in that way, but it was very, very apparent. You could go on the biggest community hole on the lake and sit by somebody else and catch them every cast when somebody else was not even getting a bite.
I've had this conversation with a lot of people recently. Do you think these fish are starting to feel the forward-facing sonar, whatever the ping, the click, the deal of that is, and longer casts and more finesse and distance away from the boat is starting to make a bigger difference? Or do you think it's just that there's more guys fishing for the schools, so they get skittish as soon as they hear anything because they know that they associate that with negativity?
There's a few things that come into that. Okay, one, lack of current. How they move around. So lack of current lack of current of them moving around. Okay, lack of current in that scenario. If there's no current, they get up off the bottom more. Okay, so then they move around a lot more. So then they're like more susceptible. If you make a lot of noise, what are they going to do? Swim to you. Okay, so longer casts are important there.
Swim to you?
Yes.
If you make noise in your boat, those fish are going to go towards you.
Yeah.
You saying this this is a known thing?
Yeah, I mean they're curious. They want to know.
Largemouth, not smallmouth.
Largemouth will swim to you until they get about 40 feet out, and they'll sit there and they're like, "All right, thanks a lot, big dog."
So they'll hear something, be like, "What the hell is that?" Swim off of their spot, be like, "Yeah, don't feel like I really have a burning desire to be around that structure up there," and then bounce.
Especially with the lack of current.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard that, dude. In all the interviews I've done, I've never heard that largemouth will swim off an offshore spot and come look at you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that now.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that. This is stuff that I've learned over the last few years. And it's been, I don't know if it's been pressure. They know. So a lot of it, I think, okay, I don't think they think it's a boat, to be fair. I think a lot of these largemouth, they hear moving in the water. You hit that, you drop your trolling motor and you make a noise and you make a big splash. And they come that way because what do they think? It's a shad ball that just got trashed by a group of fish. I think a lot of times they're sort of intrigued and they want to know, and they get over there and them suckers can see 40, 50 feet. They can see 40, 50 feet. Like, it's crazy. At least 30. They know what's up at 40 very well. And so once they hear you, I feel like that there's a line when that ping gets to them, and it seems to be around that 40 feet in that signature, and they're like, "See ya, out." They know, and of course the bigger ones are going to know earlier. Now this is the difference, okay? So Caney Lake down in Louisiana, smaller body of water, really big fish in it. Those fish were the first fish I've ever seen that I truly could tell that when you would beam them, they knew at 70, 80 feet, they knew you were on them. Those were the first fish that I really, truly believed. A lot of fish know at like 40 feet. They get it. They know. Very few know at 80 feet. Like they don't really, it's like a flashlight. A flashlight, if you're 30, if I'm holding it right in front of your face, you're gonna know pretty dang well. Oh gosh, dude, it's bright. What the heck? But if I pull off and I'm 80 feet from you and I beam that flashlight, it might not be. It's not as bright out there. It's not as bright. That doesn't have that much. But fish did. Mm-hmm. And so I had this conversation with somebody. I told Connell, I said, look, I think that these fish are not as pressured, and I'm not saying they're not pressured because it's Guntersville, but you got to think half of their year is spent in the grass. They're spent in the grass, so they don't ever get beamed. So when they get out there, especially right now, they're not used to that. Because there's times guys are like, oh, I'm turning my stuff away. I did not see that. Like I'm a straight shooter. Like, listen, yes, do I think they can play? Yes. Do I think bass are starting to understand that signature of that beam? Absolutely. Do I think that these fish and those fish did? No. 90% did not. And until that threshold that the majority of bass just no.
I'm processing this. I also think it's interesting that you were kind of the first one. Were you one of the first ones at the professional scene to win on the, I guess, straight Demiki rig, the Cherokee Lake deal, which was the straight vertical, which at the time, there were minnow baits, but that actual little 3-inch Demiki you were still using the Moon Eye, I think, on that.
Armor shad,
but that was what, 2018?
I think it was 17.
17, 18, 19, 20. So 6 years later, it's amazing. You just look at the progression because, look at that progression kind of full circle from that little bitty thing that you're throwing horizontally or vertically on smallmouth real early in the year to cold to the same general style technique, twice the size on ledges and hard spots on Lake Guntersville in post-spotted early summer. And there's so many relations between those two 6 years apart. It's cool that you can actually see the progression of the sport and the baits and the growth kind of just in that little snapshot.
It really is. Like it's mind blowing, like to where we were and now where we're at. Like you're right. It is mind blowing. Like when you think about it, like back, like where I'm used. Oh man, I remember I was using 83 kilohertz over there on 2D at Cherokee. So I had a broader beam so I could see them when they would move up on my bait. And I'm like, man, I'm so dialed in on my electronics. Oh, I got this dialed in. Like these guys are using 200 or, I'm like, oh, dialed. Now you're like, oh, I can see them 80 feet out, or I can see, it's like, wait, what? It's nuts.
Mm-hmm. You got time for one more segment? Because I just want to briefly touch on boats, baits, and clothes when we come back. Because you're starting an empire over there. You're going to be like Boyd Duckett, where every single thing outside, well, you're more because he does it. Oh, yeah. Well, no, he's got the Duckett Marine. Same thing. Like everything you use is like yours, or you owned it, or you built it, or you designed it.
Man,
there's nothing wrong with it. It's kind of cool. All right. If you're good with that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Jacob Wheeler. You kind of blew my mind with that last segment. There's some stuff there that I hadn't heard that it took me a minute to process.
I gave it up. I said, heck, if I'm going to do it, I'll give it on BTL.
I'm not sure how to turn it into me catching more fish. Like, I'm sure it's just going to me going, oh, look, they're curious, and I still can't catch them. But yeah.
No,
BTL on a Tuesday. We'll be back right after this.
Here in a bit.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ramtail craw. Great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
All right, we're back, BTL. I'm furiously perusing YouTube. I'm trying to find the Wells catfish deal. I think it's called sculling or something like that, where they take that paddle and they beat it on the water, and it like attracts the catfish, and they come up and then they catch them underneath the boat.
Well, yeah, I know. I've not seen that. I just see them always throwing those ploppers and going back and forth and like drawing them out.
They do this deal where they like take it, and I've also seen them do the striper down on Lake Texoma. The guy will take a big paddle, the guide, and everyone's using it, and he'll just bam, flat right on the water. Bam, flat right on the water. Like 4 or 5 times, and then everyone will drop their live shad down. Same theory.
Yeah. I can see that, especially on nomadic fish that are just focused. They're just all they're doing is they're thinking about that. Where's the shad? Like what's happening? Oh, they're feeding fish are over there. I mean, that definitely is. I mean, I've seen it for sure.
How long ago was the hydro wave craze? I mean, there was a time there where I literally was like, dude, I can't go fishing without the hydro wave on. Like, how are they gonna, how are they not gonna catch my KVD power pattern shad? Like, that's the only reason I'm catching them.
Yeah,
that's like 10 years ago.
5-10 years ago.
You still have one of those?
You know what? I never got on that craze. I think I had one. I had it on there one time and I fried it early in the season. I just said, whatever.
Wait, are you BSing me?
No.
So you're saying that noise in the boat will draw fish to the boat because they're curious, but you don't want a hydro wave on your boat. Do you think that there's a potential for that?
I don't want them coming to the boat because if they're out there and I'm able to make the cast before
I see what you're saying. You're not trying to catch the curious ones. You want them before they're curious.
40 feet, it's over. You know what I'm saying? Like if they're 40 feet, like once they get to 40, it's like, boop. Oh, now it's going to be a smallmouth, but smallmouth are getting the same way.
Are they?
Yeah. They're not.
I'm still trying to comprehend that you need to be quiet in the boat, not so you don't scare the fish, but so you don't attract the fish from where you're attempting to catch them from. so now the fish are in between.
Yeah, like you want them to be very comfortable in the way that they're set up. Like if they're set up where in ambush mode and you make your cast, you're going to catch one. If you jack up that ambush mode of them being set up on a brush pile, a rock, whatever, and pull them, again, not only thing that trumps that is current, because current forces them to stay there a lot of times. But that's a big deal, man. I feel like it is. I mean, this is not something I've talked to a lot of people about, but I feel like that's something that I've just personally seen over the years, and that's from multiple different fisheries. Used to, they'd come on your boat and you would just drop your your drop down. That's what would happen. Like, that's what we're like dropping on them. Now you can get. I mean, now you still can catch smallmouth dropping on them, like on 2D, but it's just like it's harder because now everybody's able to make those casts.
That's not to say the hydro wave can't be effective. There are specific times. You're talking about a school of fish. You're not talking about roaming fish or in the fall or when they're feeding on bait or anything. You're talking about this specific. So it's not like you're saying, hey, this is, you know what I mean? Like this is just in this scenario.
No, I'm just saying that in that scenario, like I don't use it.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have the element of surprise and let them suckers know I'm there.
Clay wants to jump on the bandwagon. He says, if you're asking about the hydro wave, you need to ask him about bait fuel. What are your thoughts on that? Work? Not work? I mean, I don't know. Are you like, do you have a scent propriety? Are you sponsored by a scent?
I'm not a big scent guy on a lot of things other than smallmouth. And so for me, I've never bought any. So I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't believe that scent is as big a deal as some people think it is. Sometimes it can be. I can see it during one of my good friends, Sean Weeda, owns Weeda's Marine. He's one of the best flippers I've ever met in my entire life. And I remember a long time ago, he talked about how he really felt like around the spawn that scent is a huge deal. And so he caught a lot of his fish around the spawn with scent. And now this being said, smallmouth, I don't think it hurts. Smallmouth, I definitely think it matters, and I've seen it matter in certain scenarios. And I think that other times I feel like it just matters. Listen, I don't think Zoom is one of the number one selling soft plastic companies in the country, and it smells like plastic. And the bass eat it still to this day, they eat it just like they used to. Like, I mean, they still buy the old monster worm. They still, I mean, that's just so that's why it's hard for me, but I do think it doesn't hurt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion, it does not hurt anything.
You know what I miss? I miss the days of the garlic, the strawberry, and the grape. Remember we used to open up a pack like back in the day as a kid, and I mean, it smelled so good.
Strawberry and grape.
Yeah, like the jelly worms and all that. Like you'd get all those scented.
I don't get on that.
Yeah,
like the old
smells
bang
so
garlic.
good.
Yes. Like chompers, garlic.
Yeah. The chompers bag, like because I fished as a co-angler back then. Oh, I remember you open up that chompers twin tail hula grub at about 95 degrees, and it literally smells like you just robbed an Italian restaurant for the remainder of the day. Then it's like slimy on your hands. You're in this other dude's boat. Of course, you're like 16. You didn't bring any. You're like trying to figure out what the hell to do. You like wash your hands. It's still slimy.
I was like, I know the chompers one to me was like the big, like you would be like downwind to somebody, you'd open up the like, whoa, dude, what you got up there?
The bang combo, the garlic combo brings back a lot of fond memories for me.
Same here. A
lot of fond memories of the club tournaments because all the old guys had the bang garlic combo and they just on their Producto black grape red glitter.
They'd have it in the backseat of their boat or on they'd have it on like a cup holder or like
the black holder on the butt seat.
Yes, they'd grab it out.
Yep, and it just a haze of it just headed your way right towards the back of the boat.
One of those deals, yes, literally. But my uncle was on that. Listen, my uncle got me started in bass fishing, and that it was part of it. My dad and my uncle both, and he was on that bang garlic bag more than anything else. It was so funny. I mean, he just loved it. Dude, I'd be over here like, dang, Uncle Mo, don't do that anymore, man. Man, you can't smell it. Throw it out there. The whole club, it was like a cult. The whole club was throwing it. You got the bang garlic. You got that bang garlic.
Yeah.
You got that crawfish. It just came out of that crawfish scent. You ready to go get that crawfish
Did
scent?
they all wear jeans with no belt too and then sit on the butt seat to where you had to look at the butt crack for the entire day from the back of the boat while they slow wormed their garlic Producto?
That was a typical day. Yep. That was a typical day on Indiana Lake fishing the club tournament. It's about right.
Dude, that brings back so many memories. Carl Jacobson's still all in on the bang. Remember he was doing it like every 2 casts when he won on 10 Killer.
See, I know, and it's interesting because I think there's something to it. Like there's definitely something to it. I mean, there is. I get it, but like as long as it gives you confidence, that's the biggest key in fishing.
But if you listen to some, they're like the bang sucks because it's oil based. They're like it can't disperse, and then it's like the water base sucks because it doesn't leave a trail, so you can't. So it's like I have no idea what to believe. But I would always keep the bang on until like if you had the jig and you sprayed it, and when you plopped it in the water, there wasn't a little ring of oil that came off. That's when I knew it was time to reapply.
Yep. That's a good point. That's a good point. Like that. Yeah. I don't know because I'm like I think I put like I had a specific scent that I wanted in the plastics. You know what I'm saying? And I actually like we injected like. There's a lot of stuff, but anyway. So
can we go back to that? Can we stay with that for a second?
Well,
you
no,
injected?
I
Wait,
can't.
You're doing it now, or you used to?
No, I'm not injecting. This is like something that's happening right now. So
people are injecting their. I know you want to move on, but I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable. People are like using syringes and stuff and inject. So it's like a gusher. They're fishing gushers out there now.
No, it's not. I don't even know exactly what I can say because like obviously it's based on out yet. So with this was like it was the process of what we did with that bait, and so it was like how can we make it last longer? And so that was what like scent because smallmouth it does matter, and spots I think it matters too. Largemouth I think it's like a 50-50. I think it can matter big time at times, and some people think it matters a lot. Some people think it does not matter at all. I think it's sort of like. But like certain times of the year, I'd rather have it than not have it. You know what I'm saying?
Do you not remember the scent pellets that the plastics would come out and you would have like the little pellets that came with it, and then you jam it into the plastic and it was supposed to slowly disperse as you fished your lizard?
Yeah, you remember like the Alka-Seltzer freaking tabs and stuff?
Yeah.
People used to like pitch on a bedfish, like, oh, you need this. It's crazy. Like I do remember that the scent. Like if you stuck it in your tube, and they have an Alka-Seltzer tab in there, and it'd be like, or like a scent pellet. They put it in there.
Yeah,
I actually know one of my really good friends, Wagner. He's one of the best small fishermen I've ever fished with, and he's big on scent. And so that's unless that guy catches more smallmouth than anybody I know. Keith Wagner, he's an absolute stick, but he's taught me a lot about scent, and so that's why I've believed a lot. Like in the scenarios, like dude, I've made a cast with something that doesn't have scent, and then make another cast, and I catch 10 bass. Like it's amazing on some of the things he's taught me.
Mm-hmm. How about the guys who wrap their shank of their hook with pipe cleaner so that the scent gets absorbed into the pipe cleaner? Did you ever see that? There are a couple old school guys who did that.
I know some. Well, actually, he did that. Actually, taught me that. He said that was the deal or something.
We're beating a dead horse here, but I'll continue with it because the biggest scent tournament that I remember was Clear Lake, Byron Velvick, BV 3D Rego. He had the paper plate. He had those tubes of stuff. And the guy was literally making sandwiches out of the scent. I mean, dude, you couldn't even see the bait through it. There was a 1/4 inch of scent around that dang thing.
Caking it.
Remember that?
I do. I was like, what the heck's he doing? Like, is this like, this must be a big deal. And I was like, I mean, but I could see that with a big bait, maybe it would just like, if you think about this, okay, maybe that could trigger a fish. Like, okay, especially in a big bait scenario. Think about big baits. Like there's such a big drawing power to a big bait that like maybe if you could add one more thing, adding that scent could get 1 or 2 more fish to commit because you're going to have 100 of them following. You know what I'm saying? Throughout the day. So if you can get one of those 100 to actually eat it because of the scent it's coming off of that bait, that's actually not a bad idea. That's the only thing that I actually that to me I'm like, okay, that one like I can see maybe a couple of them. Maybe you have 3 or 4. Maybe if they're sitting there and they're following and they're like, and they get a little whiff of that scent, maybe it makes it impacts them enough where. But I don't necessarily feel like I do feel like it's a bite triggering deal. Like I think I don't think that just because you have scent is they're going to hold on to the bait longer. I think like, I don't necessarily feel like they're going to hold on to it longer. I feel like it's going to be like they're either going to bite it now and commit to it, or they're going to let it go by.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And Scott Martin's his video from Santee Cooper, he's all in on the bait pop. I mean, the dude was, he was that's the best of both worlds. That not only shows up better on forward facing Sodar, but also adds an attract. It never ends, dude. I mean, you could end up dying, dipping, soaking, spraying, massaging stuff into your baits all day long.
I remember like a big deal in the crappie world, or at least for my buddies back home in Indiana.
I'm in 100% in on crappie. Crappie scent is massive.
It's a big deal.
Massive. Huge deal.
Huh.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I was just out 2 days ago and we were running low on minnows and we were just using we were literally taking the minnow and cutting chunks out of the minnow, putting it on our hair jigs just for the scent of the minnow so they would commit to it. It had nothing to do with the actual minnow. I'm a firm believer in scent for crappie.
So, that's what I'm saying. Like, I could see it, man. I could see it. I was crappie. I get it. I know they used to have like little bites, like maybe
crappie nibbles. I still use those suckers all the time, man.
Crappie nibbles.
Hell yeah. Chartreuse crappie nibbles. Put 2 of them suckers on. You're bound to get bite.
Yeah, I was like, I just never knew. I was like, whatever, okay. But again, I'm not the scent guy, so I'm not.
Yeah, great point by Clay here. He said Skeet won that same year, I believe, on Kentucky Lake, wasn't it? With that same bait, no scent. Remember there was a year there where the Rego BV3D and the Skeet, there was a SKT and a BV3D.
Smith? No.
It was Kentucky, I thought.
Okay.
I thought he was throwing in with a bridge at Kentucky. I don't know.
Was that what he wanted? Huh.
Oh, no, Smith Mountain?
That's what I said, Smith Mountain.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Smith Mountain.
I told you. I was like,
I know. I should never question your bass fishing knowledge history.
You're pretty
like
good.
People don't give you enough credit. Like you might, I don't know if you could give Ken Duke a run for his money or
I can't do.
Does Newell remember all that stuff or does Newell just do his research before each event? Like, I don't know if Newell's mind is like a steel trap.
You need to have Newell on here. He is the most impressive. Like he has such different minds. Like Newell's the man. Like,
I've known him forever.
Dude, Newell is so cool. Like,
a lot of respect for that guy.
I got so much respect for Newell. He works his tail off. He loves the sport. I mean, he knows so much. He knows a lot of history. He does.
All right, how's the boat going? Icon launched at the Classic. There'd been glimpses of it. The thing's out. Everyone's been in it, put their hands on it, run it. You've got over a half season under it now.
It's been good. It's been really good. Except that the one thing about it, from when launching the company, so HCB is a division, HCB Yachts, Center Console Yachts. The first boat that we built was the LX Luxury. In that boat, in that 21, it's a big boat. It's the Cadillac. It's not a Ferrari. So it's a Cadillac of our brand. That's the one that it's going to be, top of line, throwing everything in it. And so it's a little bit on the pricier side. And as we sort of continue to go down, there's a lot of room for long-term. It's a long-term play. So I got a little pushback on some of the pricing, and that's not necessarily me on that side. That was just, but it was something that the boat's been really good. It's been well received. There's been a lot of really some cool stuff about it. And overall, it's out of the boat. I'll tell you this. I'll give the boat a 10 out of 10 for stability, for getting up on pad fast, for driving maneuverability. The one thing that boat is not, it's not a fast boat. It's a 63 to a 68 mile an hour boat. That's what it is. That's just not. It's a great big water boat. It lifts well. It doesn't spear a wave. You're just not. If you're looking for a speed boat, that boat is not it.
It's not going to beat an Allison.
There's definitely not going to be the house. But so that's the thing. So like comfort, storage, all those things. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun, man. I enjoy it. I took it like a little bit like, cause coming out there, when you're starting a company and you're working and you're trying to like on this whole thing, like working with the whole team and talking with the owners and working with all this whole thing. I'm like, do we develop a boat that's a lower price point, or do you develop a boat like that's high end and sort of work your way down? And it's like, listen, if you're going to develop a boat that's a lower price point, you're always going to be looked at as that lower price point boat. You can never build, a high end boat because you're going to be looked at and viewed at as this boat right here. So always, because that was your first impression. So that was really something that's like, this is a long-term play. We're not here for a flash in a pan. We're here to build for everybody. And so that was sort of the reason why it came out that way.
I don't think people realize whether it's a Bass Cat or a Skeeter or a Triton or a Ranger or a Vexus or a Phoenix or an Icon, how few high-end, top-level fiberglass bass boats are made each year. It's not hundreds of thousands of these things. I would venture to say it's not even tens of thousands of these things, even if you combine them all. How many of these things are in existence right now? Like, are there 100 in existence? There's what? How many are in existence right now?
There's, I think it's right over 100. Maybe
right around 100.
Yeah,
that's wild. That's cool to have your fingerprints on that. Are you also doing an entire clothing line for Magellan too?
So yeah, that was a really cool collection deal. Like this is like a Magellan hoodie. Like I was able to they gave me the opportunity to do a Magellan lineup of clothes. And so I did some really cool stuff with the shorts. There's a lot more ventilation in the shorts, more of like a higher end, Magellan Outdoors. And what they've done is they've given a lot of people an opportunity to have a good pair of clothes and good fishing clothing for fairly inexpensive. And so that's why I started working with them on trying to develop some stuff like for my sun gloves, like I wear those, they're super thin, and it's like grabbing the fish, like they dry out really quickly to the buff and to your gator like that. Those are the things that like I just sort of thought like, okay, like how can I make stuff a little bit different? And they're all on academies and online as well. But yeah, that was a lot of fun too. I mean, that was sort of, it's cool, like to have a hand in a lot of things. Obviously it's a lot of work, but it's also something that's like to see Signature Series stuff and see anglers wearing that stuff from boat shoes to that's pretty cool.
Signature Series line of rods still going good. That was like years ago. That's old hat now. Anything new coming out on that front?
I'm working on something.
Oh,
I'm working on something there too.
You gotta be working on a rod for this bait. Is there a name? Did you say before there's a name for this bait already?
The freeloader.
Freeloader. Okay.
The freeloader.
You working on a freeloader rod?
So actually that 7-foot medium action rod that I have already
short
in my Signature Series is unbelievable. So the whole key with that technique is you want a fast tip to impart that action. And then you want that backbone. So like you don't want, like if you don't have a fast tip, you can't really like pop him and do it. So but you don't want it too fast where it won't drive the hook at like 80 feet or 70 feet. So you got to really, it's a fine line. I mean, I lost like one bass the whole week. So I don't, I personally, I don't think I'm going to design a rod for it because it seemed to work just fine.
Okay. Line of soft plastics coming out at ICAST with their Rapala. Mm-hmm. You say Rapala or Rapala?
Rapala.
Because it's technically Rapala. It's Lori Rapala who started the thing. If you look at all their videos and stuff, it was Lori Rapala, correct?
Right. Yeah.
There's still guys that like have been on the Rapala team for decades that call them Rapalas.
Yep. It seems like it's like more like in the South. I don't know. It's all over the place though, because there's certain like regions like you throw in the Rapalas. I'm like even the Rapalas. It just it is. It's funny. I mean, whatever. It's tomato.
What other Signature Series stuff do you have that I'm not taking into account?
I have some signature series Wiley X sunglasses.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's about. I'm trying to think.
Does most of this stuff come about like they come to you and they're like, hey, are you interested in doing this? Or do you go to the company and say, hey, I've got an idea for this stuff that I think could work, and then you design it and it works? Is it something that's already done that they're like, hey, can we slap your name on this because you move product? Like, how do most of these come about?
So it's a combination of a couple of things. Like, one, it'd be like, hey, we want you to be the face of this, or hey, we want you to help develop this. It comes that way. A lot of times I'll come, and I've also had it where I'm like, hey, look, I really like these pair of sunglasses, like Wiley X. Like, I really like this pair of sunglasses. I want to tweak them. I like this frame. I like this lens. I want to tweak this lens and do this to this. Can we do that and have a signature series? So it's a combination of it all. It really just depends. Each company is different. Like with Icon, like I jumped in that boat. They had a running platform before. I was with Triton for years. And I ran their DV boat, their mule boat. Actually, it's like not even like that. You're just like just a running platform. So like by the time I was done with my contract, I was able to even do anything with the Icon aspect. I was able to do storage and top cap and able to sort of and help on that side of it. I wasn't really, and I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to be the one that's sitting here, just, working on the running surface of the boat and say, hey, I need to do this. And you guys need to do that. Like, I'm like, hey, all I'm telling you is I need this, or hey, I need that, or I need more stability, or hey, I'm hitting too hard on this side of the boat. I don't know why that. Maybe there's weight here. So yeah, I mean, it's all over the board. There's companies that approach people, it's approached me in the past. There's ideas. It just it's a combination of it all.
I do want to throw this up. I'm assuming this is what you were talking about with the rod. I mean, that's a long distance right there. And you're talking about that rod loading.
Okay. This is the funniest. Okay. This is actually really, really funny. See how I'm really horsing on this fish?
Yeah.
This is the dumbest thing I did the whole tournament. So I'm literally reeling this fish in. And I'm like, dude, I set the hook and it's like, zzz, 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 zzz.
Catfish, drum.
Like drum. And I'm yanking on it. I'm like, zzz, zzz. I literally pointed over there to the camera, but I'm like, comes up, it's a 4.9.
It's a good one. 4.5 pounder.
It was a 4.9. I'm like, now, little did I know, I called that fish out by the end of that day. But yeah. I was like, you're an idiot.
Because who among us just doesn't call out pedestrian 4.9s?
Of course, I did that moment, but I was
just, of course, naturally, let's just call 4.5s.
That
just
was like
measly 4.5.
Dude, I was that day, that knockout round day was insane. I had my second best 5 weighed 22.9. It was, and I had like a 16.5 pound spotted bass bag.
What?
Yeah. I had like a 16.
Oh, now we're talking my language.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they had that many big ones in Guntersville.
Dude, I caught a 314, a 37, a 33. I forget. I was keeping up because every time I catch it, I'm like, did I call my spot? I was having fun, obviously. You're real, man. Like you're like, oh, it's another 3 pounder. Oh, it's a spot. Get him in here. Let's weigh that one. It was fun. Obviously, it was fun.
All right, what else you got before I let you go? I appreciate it. Hour and 25 minutes in with a lot of juice with the most recent BPT champ, Jacob Wheeler.
I always, we can talk off the record a lot of times too. It's always fun to sort of chat with you, man. You always have really good questions, and we do a deep dive. And I'm like, man, you're one of the only shows I go on to give the goods up. So I enjoy. I'm just
talking. A nerd, man. I'm just a dork. Like I just to get into this stuff, it intrigues me.
That's all I am too. I'm the same way. I'm just a student of the game. I love basketball. I love the sport, man.
You know what amazes me? It amazes me at how many guys reach the top level of the sport, have dedicated their lives to it, but there's like a kind of core similar philosophies over the thousands of interviews that I've done. You start to see patterns, but there's also wildly different ways to get to the same point, and each one has done it their way that works for them. I mean, you've done it better than anyone else. Statistically, you're looking at it. There's maybe like one or two guys in history at the point of the career that you're at that's done it. But how many guys have fed their families, made a career out of this, won trophies, made 6-7 figures over the course of their career doing it? Such a vast, different philosophies, right? I mean, have you ever noticed that too? That's kind of what drives me mad, because I want to be a guy who's like, this is the right way to do it. Like in hockey, if you're chipping a puck out and you're a winger, there's a right way to get the puck out of the zone, off the glass, up and out and that. But fishing, that's what makes it so cool.
Yeah, it does. Like you look at Ott, like Ott's a good friend of mine, and Ott is a hard worker, but Ott gets off the water the second day of practice, or every day of practice, like by like 5 o'clock. He goes have dinner. Like if his family's there, he'll go have dinner with them. I'm out there till the last second. I'm running there. I remember like last year, I'm last second. And there's guys that just have a different way of processing information. And that works better for them. If they figure out too much, or, it's like if they pre-practice that, it messes them up. And like everybody has a different way of doing things. It is different. It's success is not defined by like the prep, your prep work. That's what works for me. And that's my system, and that's what works. But like everybody has their own way. Like you could learn too much and have too much information to process in the tournament and never be able to actually get dialed in. And that's what negatively impacts you. Like I talked about that. We're like, look, he's like, I hate going in pre-practicing. He's like, I can't, like, it never helps me. And I always end up wasting a day of practice. And I'm like, dude, I love it. Like I have a vision of what I'm seeing. I don't fish a lot, but I have a vision of like the playing field, So it just, there's not a right way or a wrong way to become to do this deal, man. It's you got to do it your way.
All right, we got a good show coming up tomorrow, folks. You got Ben Milliken coming on the show. He's going to break down his finish on Wheeler, and we're going to straighten some things out. We had a vintage TVA. So he comes on the show all the time after every single event. Like, I never in my life ever thought I would be in a beef with Ben Milliken. And we just had a TVA ledge dust up.
Oh, it's easy to do. TVA is tough, man. It's difficult. Communication's everything, and it's probably the worst for it because it's tough. I get it,
but I figure why not talk about it live? Like he thinks he's right. I think I'm right. We've had stuff go on. I heard there was maybe a little bit of a hullabaloo that went down out there on Guntersville this week.
Oh,
maybe I heard that. Maybe there might have been a few disagreements out there on Lake Guntersville in the BPT. Did you hear about those?
I heard about them. Yeah, I mean, it happens. Look, that's
happens in Wheeler. Happened on the Elite Series. It happens on everything. So hopefully we can turn it into an educational experience.
I might have to tune in.
Because, dude, what he's doing in the industry is, I think, is really important with what he's doing over there at the Opens. Not only giving the Opens that platform with his fan base, but also having the success that he's doing with baits that are non-traditional baits. He's opening up a lot of eyes. I'm sure I'm going to get some hate. Like I said, his people are called MFers, Milliken fishermen. I'm sure I'll get.
Yeah, you're going to get tracked. Yeah. No, I think I don't know Ben. I don't know him at all. I think he's a great fisherman. It seems like he's really dialed in on a lot of things.
Oh, dude, he is, and he's really, really committed to the craft.
Yeah, it seems that way, which I all respect for anybody that works hard at what their craft, So. But yeah, I'm about to tune in. I'll be the mediator.
You be the Should I bring in Jacob Wheeler as the mediator? All right, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Exactly. Whoa.
I'm telling you, that's really not a bad idea. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do the show.
It's very unique. Okay, so a TVA deal is a little bit unique, and there's scenarios that it all depends on how it was handled. Like, it all depends on how big a group it is. It all depends on what it is.
You'll have to tune in tomorrow to see.
I want to know. I'm gonna have to find out.
You'll have to tune in tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Central Time, Wednesday. May 24th.
All right, I'm gonna have to do that then.
All right, let me get the music going here. I always got to end us off with some music.
Oh.
There it is. All right, you still there?
PBA brawl, then. Hanger and Gun Milligan out there fight.
All right, this has been another edition of BTL, a special lunch edition. I'm actually hungry now because I didn't eat anything after the first one. It's 1:30. I have 1 cup of coffee in me. BTL with Jacob Wheeler. Jacob, you brought the juice. I greatly appreciate it. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
See ya.
Appreciate you guys, buddy.